Welcome everybody to the Work Hard, Play Hard podcast. I'm your host Ryan Harding, and today I got Boo Maddox with me.
What's up?
And I'm doing well. How you doing?
Good. It's been a minute.
It has been a minute. Boo is one of our. He was like our number 3 or number 4 episode, I think.
That quick?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Good for you guys.
Yeah.
That's exciting. How
we
many are you
didn't-
up to now?
We didn't tell you then because we wanted
Oh,
you
that's
to
fine.
come on.
No, I was happy to be there. How many are you guys up to now?
We're up to like 39,
Sick.
I think.
Congratulations.
Something like that.
That's
in the 30s.
incredible.
Yeah. So it's going well. It's been good. So good way to get content out, help agents, and local stuff, right?
For sure.
Kind of know what we're doing and stuff. So
Good for you guys.
but anyhow, Boo's you've had some changes yourself.
Yeah.
Recently. So
Yeah.
tell us, obviously last time we spoke, you were at Edge Homes. You gave us a good forecast on kind of what they were doing and stuff like that. Things have changed for you.
Yeah.
Tell us about that change. What's going on?
Yeah. So in July of this year, I made the decision to walk away from Edge, which was a weird one. That was one that I never thought I would do that.
Because your dad's an influential part of that company.
Yeah. He's still there the day to day. He still
Yeah.
runs everything.
Yeah.
And for me, since I was a child, one of the earliest memories I have of being around new construction with him was seeing some of the sales agents, right?
Sure.
Which is big inspiration to what I'm doing now,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
I would see sales agents and I'm like, that's the job. That's the job that I want to. And so I lived my entire life, changed my entire personality. I'm just kidding, but I made selling new construction my life.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when all of a sudden it's okay, I'm 29, 30 years old at this point.
Yeah.
I did what I was trying to come and do. Now what?
Yeah. Yeah. What and so what are you doing now?
So I quit without knowing exactly what I was going to go do.
Okay.
For me, it was super important because I cared about Edge. I didn't want to go to my dad and be like, hey man, I'm out, and have something already lined up, because it kind of felt like it was cheating almost,
Okay.
I would say.
Sure.
So I quit, and I had truly no idea what I was going to go and do.
Okay.
I thought I would get out of real estate maybe. I interviewed with some different companies in some different industries, and after 60 days or so, it just was okay, real estate is where I was always supposed to be. It's where I think I'll die. This is
what I like.
This is part of who I am,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So then it became, okay, what brokerage, what team do I want to join? Do I want to go solo? How do I want to approach it? And I had a unique opportunity, I would say, when I was at Edge to go and be in probably more sales meetings and team meetings than the majority of people will ever have the opportunity to go to, from different brokerages, different teams, Utah, Salt Lake County. Met with some incredible people and watched some incredible leaders, right? So when I started to think okay, who do I want to partner with? I kept coming back to Michael Perry, who was a dear friend. And so to me, I called him, I said, hey, I want to come and hang my license. I have some ideas about trying to go get new construction business, trying to do some stuff in production.
Yeah.
So joined the team, and about 30, 45 days in, him and I looked at each other one day and we're like, Utah County would be a pretty cool place for a new Perry Group office.
Yeah.
So that was September-ish.
Okay.
Here we are, January 25th.
Yep.
And we are up and running. So new office in Pleasant Grove, and a lot going on.
Okay. And so just barely. This year you started it up, right?
Yeah. December 8th was our first day in office, I think.
Okay.
So.
And how does it differ from is there any difference, I guess, between the Salt Lake branch versus the Utah County branch, I guess, as far as structure and stuff like that?
It's fascinating because I had a couple of things that I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, there's certain things that I believe in that lead to agents selling at a high level.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, I'm going to want a little bit of creative direction with this.
Sure.
And Michael, his dad, Jack, Johnny, his brother, have been incredible in letting me just kind of design it as I want to within the parameters that they've given, with some of the same principles, some of the same models that have led to 16 agents this year being in the top 500, right?
Yeah.
We know how to sell houses. We know how to go and get new agents into production.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep those same principles that are tried and true, but I'm going to put my little spin to it, I think.
I was just going to say, okay, yeah, your little spin. So then, do you want to get into your spin? What?
I would say it's still developing.
Okay.
It's definitely not anything that's fine-tuned at this point.
Okay.
Right? It's been interesting trying to approach something because I've never been a team lead type person.
Yeah.
Right? My entire life revolved around transacting at a high level. Right? I did the math. I averaged 91 transactions a year for my 6 years at Edge, every single year.
Wow.
And so I am not approaching starting and running an office as somebody that's an established, experienced team leader. I'm doing it from the point of a producer that somebody has sold a lot of houses, has negotiated a ton of them, has spent a ton of time in the market, is coming up on 10 years in the industry.
Yeah.
That is all revolved around production, and I think that looks a little bit different than if you're approaching it and saying this is what we were doing 10 or 15 or 20 years ago in production.
Sure. And so, obviously, you're having success recruiting people, right? I mean,
yeah.
Getting them over there and stuff like that.
Yeah, we set a goal for a total agent count by the end of 2024. The goal is to be halfway there, obviously, by the end of June, and we're hitting that at the end of this month.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Well, it's a weird time in the market.
It's
a weird time, I think, where people are feeling a little bit maybe disenfranchised.
Sure.
I mean, you talk to a lot of agents. What do you think they're feeling with their current brokerages?
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, because things are so low right now, that's the time when people are kind of like, hey, is this where I should be?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that happened to me a year ago. That's why I say I broke off
that's
myself,
what I mean.
right? Because it's like, well,
I think that's what a changing market does, though, right?
It totally does. Because when things are busy, you don't have time to. You're just raking in the hay, right? You're just
you jump in it. You don't know what you're doing. You just say, okay, this is the way things are done.
Yep.
And then you get to a certain point, and I think if that's the market changing, then it's definitely a catalyst to, okay, why am I where I'm at currently, and what value are they creating for me?
Yeah. Well, so that's great. You're having so much success right now, and obviously the Perry Group's a very well respected. We've had him on the podcast, and really liked him. He's a good guy. So, but has it been? Are you finding the? What would I say? You want to like what you do, and obviously you already like what you do. But has this been a good challenge for you as far as just for personal growth's sake, I guess, and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a fascinating question, because I would say that's also the answer to ultimately why I quit Edge.
Okay.
Like for me, I looked down, and it felt good, right? Like it felt like my business was finally running.
Sure.
At a really great clip. The time that I had spent invested in it was now paying out to the point where I had to work maybe 20 to 25 hours a week to manage my pipeline. Yeah. I spent the rest of it with my kids. I went on more vacations. I spent more time with them. And I realized that when it came to production, I didn't want to be in the same spot in 5 years. Okay. And so ultimately that was like, okay, I do need something different to challenge me. I want to add some different skills to my bag. Like, you ask what's different, I don't know yet. I'm hoping in 2 more years when I come on, I can say this is what we do really, really well differently. That's why I left those, to go try to figure that out for myself and see if this is something that I can do like I think I can.
Which props to you, because a lot of times I would call it golden handcuffs that kind of keep you in different spots, right? Yeah. And on the one hand, if our main job in life is just to make money, well, you were doing fine. But there comes a point where you're like, well, I want some kind of challenge. I want to be challenged here. I want to grow personally, even if it's, maybe taking a pay cut initially with long-term growth and stuff like that. And I don't know, we don't need to get into that. But my point is that you want that challenge, I think. And it sounds like you're getting that.
For me, challenge was part of it. As dumb as this is to say, though, like, fun is a massive portion of this for me.
Okay, good.
And it was a weird moment, because I would say my favorite part of ever selling Edge homes was when people would sign a contract, right? Like, to me, that was always, I think for most people, that's like the most exciting time in real estate. Okay. That's when the fun is happening, I would say.
Sure.
My wife recently got her license, or a few months before I left Edge. And she brought a transaction where she was representing the buyer, I was representing the seller. The family stood to make more on one paycheck than we had ever made as a little family. And she looked at me and she goes, I don't feel like you even care that just happened. And I'm like, that's a weird place to be. Yeah. And so I would say it's like the challenge, but it's also like, this is supposed to be fun.
Sure.
I think real estate is supposed to be fun, and I think that gets lost in it sometimes because you are swimming an uphill battle, I think, a lot of the time when you're trying to produce. And so for me, it's like, this is something that I think is genuinely going to be fun, and I think the people on our team so far have been feeling that as we've approached trainings, as we've approached how are we going to try to sell more houses in Utah County.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, so let's talk about that then. Let's go into the market a little bit. Obviously, this last year was, a tough year, right? Just numbers-wise, less volume than most, right? Yeah. What, how did that year go for you? What things did you learn from that year? Obviously you made some changes and stuff like that too. So putting that aside, I guess just from a market perspective, what would you say you learned from last year?
So I'd say on like a production level, my production was down, but it's also hard to gauge if that's because I kind of knew I was leaving,
Sure.
because I was definitely spending more time with my family. I was
Sure.
kind of on my way out, I would say, mentally.
Yeah.
So production is like, how do you live with slowing down a little bit? Because I think that that's part of what a lot of us felt in 2023. And like, at some point, we're all going to have to be okay with how we spent our time and start looking forward.
Yeah.
But I would say once Michael and I started having the conversation at the end of 2023, my mindset towards the market shifted from, okay, now what do I tell agents when I'm sitting across the table from them?
Yeah.
And I would say it is shifted to something that is excited about the forecast, because I think part of the urgency that we felt when we were starting this office was that we have about 12 to 18 months to kind of get this right before the market very realistically could start to look something like it did in 2020.
Yeah.
So for us, it was, okay, we don't want to wait 6 months. We don't want to wait 3 months. We want to get this started now, because to us, like I said, I think you have 12 to 18 months of grinding, of it feeling very similar to 2023 with some spikes in the middle of,
Sure.
of inventory being taken off the market. But like, I think it's going to feel very similar, but it's going to be a little bit more optimistic maybe.
Okay. So as far as forecast goes, then 12 to 18 months, you're thinking, hey, should be a better market then, I guess, as far as volume goes. And stuff.
If interest rates go down like they are predicted to, it stands to reason that inventory will be taken off the market.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what plays into it in 2025, because the reality is you're not seeing builders building as many houses right now.
Yeah.
Right now, if you look at it in Utah and Salt Lake County, new construction accounts for about 40% of the active listings.
Yeah.
So what happens if all of a sudden builders, and if you start to see builders are starting to sell off their quick move-in inventory, the next step of that is you're going to see those incentives go away. Right? Edge homes, right? Family business, I'm paying attention to what they're doing.
Of course.
They're running a 3% incentive. How do they increase prices 3% without increasing prices 3%? The incentives just start to go away, and I think that's kind of one of the first signs that you're going to see that, okay, prices are on the verge of going up.
Gotcha.
The conversation to be had is increasing or decreasing interest rates going to have more sellers in a position where they can sell? Yeah, so I do think that you're going to see weird influxes of inventory at times. And I think that's what's going to make it feel sporadic for 2024. But I think, I don't want to say inventory will be where it was in 2020, but I think it's going to be lower than what a lot of people are comfortable with.
Sure. Which we're hoping that, obviously if interest rates do come down, because you've got a lot of people that have bought their house in 2020.
Yeah.
It's 4 years later now, right? And they've had a couple kids.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden that house is starting to feel a little cramped, but they don't want to move because they got a 2%, 3% rate, right?
Yeah.
And so, if rates can come down into the fours maybe, now all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's not so bad to buy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, sure, we're losing our 2-3% rate, and so, hopefully there'll be more inventory, but yeah, still a shortage for the amount of buyers that maybe we have.
Yeah, well, and so that's why I'm kind of calling my shot with it, right? Like I want it on film when I tell everybody, when you see the incentives start to go away from builders, that's when you'll know that price increases are going to follow shortly.
Okay.
Just because that is the quickest way that they can add to the bottom line and still advertise the low prices that they have right now.
Sure.
Like that is going to be one of the first things that everyone's gonna be like, okay, now what's happening? And I don't know exactly what happens after that. I don't know if, like we said, more sellers are able to actually sell and it makes sense for them.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll just have more buyers re-enter the market because interest rates go up. A combination of both, I think.
Okay. No, that's good advice. You're on camera, so we we got that on there. So going back to the Perry Group and stuff like that, how important is like support staff and not just what kind of tools does the Perry Group have that helps if somebody was going to go to their be a realtor there and stuff like that, what kind of support staff do they have, or what or how important is that? I mean, is that important for new realtors coming on and stuff like that?
No, it's a good question. I think it's something that everyone should ask themselves. I think I'm probably a terrible person to ask though, because I am very pro team.
Okay.
Like at the end of it, I look at the amount of units I was able to sell, the amount of dollars that I was able to actually take home to my family.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a ton of real estate agents that were out producing what I was doing from a team environment. And I think that success was mostly because I had better systems in place.
Okay.
Without me understanding that everything was being taken care of, like Edge had it dialed in.
Sure.
there is no way that I could have sold the amount of houses I did without having the support that Edge Homes gave me from a company and a team perspective. And I will die on that hill because like skill, talent, whatever has to go into it. But if you don't have the systems, you either have to put them in place yourself or you have to align with somebody that has them in place. And so part of why I joined Perry Group was because to me it was the closest that I could find to what Edge had set up. Okay. And I think ultimately what Edge allowed me to do was to focus on selling real estate, and everything after that for the most part was somewhat taken care of.
Sure.
And so
focus on what you're good at.
Yeah, I was able to spend more of my time in my sweet spot, right? I could spend more time marketing. I could spend more time in actual conversations with people about buying real estate. Yeah. And I wasn't having to chase down pay stubs or deposits or whatever because we had people in place to help make that transaction run smooth. Good. And so for me, when I saw what the Perry Group was, right, like I said, my role at Edge was interesting because I got to see how so many different teams ran. And so knowing that Michael and his brother had spent so much time building a system where agents could focus on selling, I was like, this is a great opportunity. I think Zillow is a big portion of that as well. Okay. So we have the systems in place, but then we also have the lead generation in place. Once again, Edge was incredible at this. I think they do one of the better lead gen from a builder's perspective. And so having Zillow to help cover new agents that might not have the transactions that they want to, being able to put them instantly on leads that allows them to be working with warm buyers within a few weeks of joining the team is huge. Sure. Number one, it leads to transactions sooner, but number two, it also gives us more to be able to train on, right? Our motto in our office right now, I would say, is our goal is to get really, really good really, really quickly. Sure. If you are a new real estate agent or an agent that's not producing at a high level, you're losing before you even get to the transaction because you're not getting the same amount of at-bats that somebody that's really good is getting. Yeah. And so yes, the conversion that we get from Zillow is great, but also the percentage that we don't convert are equally as important to the business, because our goal is about 8 to 12 of these connections every single month for every person on our team. Yeah. That's 100 at least conversations a year that you're going to be having with an active client. What happens then when your sphere of influence starts to call you 3 and 6 and 9 months into this? You are going to be so sharp and dialed in because you are actively in the market, you're actively showing homes, you know what's going on in the market, and you'll be able to sell and help your friends even better. So having that lead source combined with the systems of having transaction coordinators, content, photos, everything being taken care of from a marketing perspective, flyers, I mean, it really is an incredible spot where you can come in and your focus should be on selling houses, and then making sure that your systems are set up to support our systems and plug in and start selling a whole bunch of houses.
Wow. Yeah. So really, I mean, that's what you focus on is like, hey, come here, we'll take care of everything for you. We'll, make you succeed, right? Yeah. I mean, and so you're gonna succeed there and stuff. So
yeah, and if you don't, I mean, I come from a background where you had to be a high producer in order to be at Edge, right? Not a lot of people know this. Edge has a minimum production standard every year of 40 transactions. Oh wow. Okay. So like, if you're not selling at least that, it's tough for you to be here. Sure. So when I was starting this, part of one of those things where I was like, hey, Michael, I feel I feel strongly about this. We have a minimum production standard for everybody on our person of 12 transactions a year. Okay. My goal is to hopefully ultimately bump that up a little bit. Sure. But like, to me, that's a great spot where you're making enough to support your family. Yeah. You can go all in on this. And it's very realistic with how we have stuff set up. So to me, it's a no-brainer to have that as a minimum. Sure. I think agents could be selling more houses, and I think that's a big focus for us, is transacting at a high level.
And obviously with new agents, I can see a huge appeal to, hey, go on with your group and stuff like that. For a more seasoned guy that's, already producing pretty good and stuff like that, is there a place for that guy at your company, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I can answer that better now just because I've spent the last 60 days recruiting, and there's been a lot of new agents, but there's also been a lot of established agents that I didn't think would be wanting to have a conversation. Sure. I met with an individual yesterday who's going to be joining the team. He does anywhere from 18 to 24 transactions a year, and he has for the last 3 years. Okay. So it's like, okay, why join a team? Yeah. The advice that I gave him is that there's two things that his business needs at this point. Regardless of what team he interviews with, these are the things that he should be asking them.
Yeah.
Number one, can the individual in leadership help me sell more houses?
Okay.
If you don't feel like the person that is tasked with being your mentor, the person that is going to be helping you lead, and the person that's going to be training you, if you don't feel like they can help you increase whatever production you have currently, not a good fit. Second is, are these systems something that I need to implement in my business anyway in order to sell more houses?
Yeah.
Is the services that I'm paying for via my split, is that worth, does that cost the same as it would if I was trying to add my own transaction coordinators and my own content person and my own photo person and my own marketing person?
Yeah.
If the answer is, I would rather have somebody else do it for me and I'll just pay for the service, then I think that you should come over with the goal of selling at least 10 more houses than you were the year before. To me, that comes from two numbers. Number one, I feel confident that I can look at your business and sit down with you and say, okay, you generated 20 transactions like this. Here's how you go and get a couple more from each of those lead sources that you personally have. Yeah. Second, I also have this cool thing called Zillow that I can get you 8 to 10 active buyers every single month. Yeah. You can convert at a certain percentage that should at least give you an extra 6 to 8 transactions. Yeah. Can I help you find the extra 2 to 4 to make that be a goal of 35 to 40 transactions? We feel confident that we can. Okay. I feel confident that I can.
Yeah, good. No, that's good answer for that. Let's talk about, as far as any advice. Let's switch from realtors and recruiting and different things like that. Let's switch to kind of the end consumer here for a second. So if you were a buyer, entering the market and stuff like that, good time to buy? Should we wait? What advice would you have to a first time, buyer coming into the market? Hearing that interest rates are going to fall maybe and stuff like that. Should I wait? Any thoughts there?
I think there's 2 points to make. The first, and this is one of the things that I'm trending on like crazy right now, is that people move for one of two things. Okay. Current dissatisfaction, they don't like where they're at, or a future promise for something better. Okay. Today, I would say what the majority of people, if they are transacting in the market today, it's based mostly on their current dissatisfaction. Okay. And so I think if somebody is in a position where they don't like where they are living, it's not a bad time to buy. Okay. I think if you are in your parents' basement, you've been there a year longer than you thought you would. Yeah. Probably doesn't matter what interest rates are because those are always going to change. Yeah. At that point, do you feel like the prices on your house is going to be more expensive or less 12 months from now? If you feel like it's going to be more, it's probably a good time to jump into the market.
Okay. What about for somebody that is looking to sell and stuff like that, that they have that 2-3% rate, but like, hey, do I want to jump into the market again? Do I want to sell and stuff like that? So
once again, current dissatisfaction is a big portion of that. Okay. If you hate where you live, then I think it's a good time to buy a house. I think prices are about as low as they're probably going to go, if I had to guess. Okay. But I also think it's an important time, right? I think the past tradition has been you move into something, you sell that, you use the equity, and you go into something a little bit nicer. Yeah. It might also be time to challenge that way of thinking. If your payment is in a spot where renting it out and becoming a landlord for a little while makes sense, there's a couple of options to pull money out against your house if you want to. If you need to save up, you can, and then it's a better time to buy. But yes, if you need to move, then sell your house.
Sure.
If you think it would be cool to have a rental property, you're probably in a good position to become a landlord.
Okay. Good advice. Yeah, no, that's good advice. As far as, one of the things obviously that a realtor does is, help negotiate things, right? That's probably something you're very good at with, working at Edge and stuff like that. But why, what kind of things are you able to negotiate now? Or why should a guy use a realtor as far as just from the negotiation standpoint? And, or is that even important? If there's, it seems right now the market's, it's not too hard to find a home and stuff like that. So why would they want a realtor from a negotiation standpoint, I guess, viewpoint?
You're asking some loaded questions. Because if I'm being really honest, there's probably, if you look at the number that 25% of agents did one transaction or less last year, that's alarming.
Okay.
And it makes some of these lawsuits that we're seeing probably make a little bit more sense.
Sure.
Part of why I have a minimum of 12 transactions to be on my team is because I think that's probably close to where you have to be transacting in order to be able to justify why, A, you're getting paid the same percentage as that other person that, let's use Michael Perry as an example.
Sure.
Right? On a transaction, you are in theory getting paid the same percentage, assuming you're selling the same listing, that Michael Perry is.
Yeah.
Are you creating the same amount of value for your buyer? Are you a part of that value is in negotiations? I think right now it's really difficult to do that if you don't have a pulse on the market, right? Because I think the concessions that you see in Saratoga Springs are different than what you see in American Fork right now.
Okay.
I am on tyrant right now with my office to get more people into new construction, because I'm a believer that right now it is cheaper to buy new construction than it is existing.
Okay.
Just simply based on the fact that if you go compare an old Edge townhome that sold in 2019 that I sold to somebody that's being resold, it's going to be sold for the exact same price, list price, as a brand new townhome. Okay. The only difference is that Edge is offering a 3% concession that allows you to cut your monthly payment, what? Sure. $200, $300, $400 a month?
Yeah.
For the same property, it is cheaper monthly right now to go and buy new construction. Okay. If your agent isn't advising you to look at new construction, that's where you're going to have probably more negotiating power than anywhere right now, just simply based on supply and demand, that a builder has 10 homes in a neighborhood they have to sell, not just one home. Okay. And so it's just a numbers thing, right? Like if you don't know that, but it goes back to that if you don't, you have to be working with an agent that transacts enough to know what can be negotiated right now and what can't, because it's very, very different from city to city and zip code to zip code right now.
Okay. Which I like that answer. I mean, that you brought up the lawsuit and different things like that. I mean, that's, so again, going back to the importance of who you hire matters, I guess, right? You know, the one that's, you know, not to knock anybody, I guess, you know, but the one that's doing one transaction a year just doesn't have the experience, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and so if you're going to be charging, if you're going to be charging the same amount as somebody else, you better be able to stand on it, right? Yeah. And it's been interesting because, like I said, my wife got her license in May, and so we've been having the conversation, and she has put a ton of time and energy into her business because I think she recognizes that, right? That she understands that she's going up against somebody like me on the other side that's saying, hey, let me interview for the job. Yeah. I'm going to charge the same amount as that person. I don't think that you always have to discount your rate, but I think you need to be able to stand on it. And I think the biggest difference that we're going to see because of the lawsuits is that a buyer's agent can no longer say the reason that you should use me, my value add to you, is that the service is free. The service is in fact not free. It is absolutely a service that the buyer is paying for just through the seller. So you should absolutely, if you're a buyer's agent today, if you are looking for a buyer's agent today, you should absolutely be interviewing them the exact same way that somebody would for a listing, because don't let anybody fool you. The lawsuits are going to clear this up for everybody. That 3% is absolutely being charged to the buyer.
So I'll dive a little bit more into this, but what do you foresee realtors, that whole thing, you know, let's play this out. I mean, obviously lawsuits take a long time to actually hit into the market, right? You know, so forecast, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, but what do you foresee the role of a realtor in this? And you know, are you going to see some realtors get out, you know, because it's harder to actually,
I hope so.
You know, well,
I hope so. Can I say that and not sound like a dude? Like, I mean, yeah, and I mean that with all the love in my heart, but like, this is going to look very different in Utah 5 years from now. Okay. Like, the agent that is going to be transacting at a high level 5 years from now is going to look very different. And I think between that and the pressure that we're getting from people, it will naturally push more people out, because it's going to be even harder than it is today to break into this business. Right? What is going away? Like, let's look at it worst case scenario with the lawsuits. To me, the worst case scenario is that the buyer's commission gets moved over to the buyer side. To me, like, I can't see it going much past that. I think you'll see a compression on the 3%, but I think ultimately what you're going to see is that, to me, that's the worst case scenario. So the conversation that we're prepping all of our agents for today is, like I just said, this to a buyer is a service that you were paying for.
What do they get? How good are you? Yeah.
And why are you charging that number? Yeah. And I think in the past, it's been very easy for buyer's agents to hide it on the seller side. Sure. And I don't think that that is healthy for the market, because I don't think that that actually requires agents to create value for their client if their perceived value is it's free to you.
Gotcha. So you see a better realtor in the future then?
They would have to be.
I mean,
Yeah, just like if you look, why doesn't everybody go and do listings?
Yeah.
Because you have to be able to explain to somebody why you're charging them 6%. Listing agents have been doing it for as long as time. Like, I think it's okay for buyers agents to be able to start having that same conversation. And if the answer is A, my service is free to you, or B, I open the door for you, no one is going to want to pay you 3%.
Yeah.
So either get really good at transacting at a really high level at a reduced rate, or figure out how to explain to people what your value is.
Okay. I like that. I mean, sooner or later. Well, and so.
And I don't know. Like, that's the thing, is like nothing might change for 5 years.
Yeah.
This is going to get tied up in all sorts of appeals. Who knows when something is actually going to happen? But to me, as I've thought through it, I can't. That to me is the worst case scenario, and then it just becomes a financing question. And to me, it's honestly being financed the same way if you look at it like that. Yeah. I don't think purchase prices will really adjust, which I think was part of the original goal in filing the lawsuit originally. But I do think you'll see a compression, just because more agents, once that gets moved over, will have a harder time explaining that why somebody, a buyer specifically, should work for them.
Which is why you're trying to train your agents now to, hey, let's just go to this now, because.
Well, I mean, even if nothing changes, nothing changes, right? To me, I know what a lot of our competition that are having the same interviews as us are saying right now. They're relying on the fact that it's free, and that's what they're leading with. If we go the other direction with this, I think we'll stand out.
Sure.
Especially when we can clearly explain it to people.
Yeah. I think you're right. Interesting to see how things will play out. But I think ultimately, like you said, we'll get a better realtor from this, which is
absolutely.
Which is not. I mean, it would be nice if that job was treated more as the profession it is.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, you go anywhere, you appreciate a good salesman. You appreciate a good, whatever person that, whatever job that is. You want them to be good at their job, and I would hope that obviously this will increase the quality of the realtors out there.
Well, I think Utah's already trending in this direction. Before the lawsuits took place, like if you look what Utah is quickly turning into, the hyper-local agent is going to be the one, to me, that wins in 5 years, and a hyper-local agent is a better agent for clients.
Sure.
Right? Like, that is a massive focus that we have at the Perry Group, is forcing that right now. People to start to get as hyper-local as possible, because to us, that's where Utah's market will be transacting in 3 to 5 years. Right? If you look at other markets that trade similar to ours, this is already happening. You have agents and they don't go outside of a handful of zip codes. Right? Like, to me, that's what the future is going to be. I look at my time at Edge. We talked through how many I sold. All of those transactions took place from Eagle Mountain to Lehigh and from Saratoga to Harriman. Right? A very small, concentrated area. And I wasn't good for everybody, but the people it was a good fit for, we were great. Right? And to me, that's the type of agent that is going to succeed in the future. And that's the person who's going to be able to articulate. I also think that agent is going to have a very established personal brand. Right? If you look at, everyone knows who Ryan Serhant is. Ryan Serhant lives in a very, very small geographically market. How does he succeed? He started out as a hyper local agent, and now he's getting a lot bigger, but he is the person. If you're looking for that specific product in that specific city, that's the person you call. You have to become that going forward. Right? If you look, you didn't have to be that 10 or 15 years ago in Utah, just because we didn't have the transactions and the dollar amounts to justify it. So you had people going from Nephi to Logan and from Tooele to Camas, because that's how far you had to drive in order to sell 40 houses a year in Utah. That is going to disappear over the next 3 to 5 years in some specific counties.
Sure. It's talking about future. Anything else futuristic? I mean, I love your insights on these things. Any other forecasts or things that you foresee? I mean, you've hit quite a few, so if you don't, that's fine.
Yeah.
So, but
no, I think from a market perspective, it'll be interesting, because as the interest rate conversation is taking place slowly, there have been 4 developments that have been started in the state of Utah that are going to completely change, I think, how real estate is viewed in the state of Utah. You have Utah City, you have the Point at Bluffdale, you have Holiday Hills, and you have, I forgot, what was the 4th one? I forgot, so let's call it 3. You have Utah City, you have the Point, and you have Holiday Hills. Those 3 neighborhoods are not going to feel like anything that I think we have seen in Utah. Those are going to start to get rolled out over the next couple of years. You see the prison being completely torn down if you've seen what Utah City is trying to do from I don't even know, engineering, like we have never seen anything like it. Yeah. And those things are going to change the market completely, I think. So be on the lookout. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens, right? Because I think there's still massive traffic concerns. There's still like some weird things that like we have not caught up to, just from a growth perspective in the state. But I think it'll be very interesting because I think it'll just change, especially in the areas that are closely connected to those. It is just going to change how the market reacts to stuff. Pricing is going to adjust. Like, it's going to be fascinating to see what happens.
Anything else that we haven't covered that you wanted to cover today? Anything else we didn't hit?
I don't know. Is there anything that I'm forgetting?
You've hit. We need to have you on a lot sooner than we did last time because actually. You're very insightful. I will say you are very good at your job. And I mean that.
No, I appreciate that. I'm new here though, so don't.
Well,
yeah.
I mean that from you can tell you were basically born and raised in this industry, I would say.
I don't know anything else. Yeah. Well, that's what I realized when I quit. I was like, son of I don't have a transferable skill set, but luckily I know what I'm doing here, I think.
You do. And I tend to believe your insights and they make a lot of sense to me and so I've enjoyed this, so that's why I say we'll have to have you on again, soon just to get a little more update and stuff. Because I think you add value to everybody. Right?
I appreciate that.
Whether they go to work with you or not, I think a lot of people would be wise to at least listen to some of the things that you got going on because you got some good insights.
I want real estate to step up in the state of Utah. Like I talked about it earlier, like some of my earliest memories. Like part of why I really wanted to do this was because I remember being a child walking around an office and seeing people like Eric Woodley, seeing people like John Woodley, seeing people like the Scoville brothers that run Arrive Homes, like seeing some of these individuals that are just titans in the industry today. I feel a sense of responsibility to start trying to bring up that next generation of people that are going to be on the forefront of some of these things. Because some of my earliest memories were watching my dad do the same thing. So like when I talk about fun, like this is fun. Like this is something that I am excited about. It's something that I wake up like being able to have conversations like this with everybody. I want real estate agents across the board to get better. Like that is, and I don't care if you come to work for me. It won't change how I talk to you, or if I can help at all, DM me, text me if you're struggling. This is supposed to be fun though.
Okay. And that's a good way to end. This is supposed to be fun. I like it.
Appreciate you guys. Of course. Hopefully it wasn't too all over the place.
No, it was perfect. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Sorry, everybody. Damn, sorry. I thought that was cut. Sorry, I'm new at this.